He sat quietly in the back, unnoticed and underestimated, just another scholarship kid trying to survive Westridge Academy. But when a professor tried to test him with a problem no one could solve, something changed. What happened next shattered expectations, exposed hidden biases, and revealed a brilliance that no one saw coming. This is the story of Marco Johnson, the genius who refused to stay silent. Marco Johnson didn't speak much. He didn't need to. Westridge Academy was filled with voices loud enough for everyone. Legacy students, alumni kids, polo shirts, and last names that meant something on paper. Marco was not one of them. He was the quiet one in the back row. The kid on scholarship with secondhand sneakers and a worn-out backpack. The kind of student no one expected much from, especially not Professor Valletta Winters. Winters had seen thousands of students pass through her classroom, some brilliant, some average, most forgettable. And to her, Marco Johnson was just another name on a list, another kid to test, to challenge, maybe even to humble. So when she walked into class that morning and wrote a sprawling equation across the whiteboard, a mess of partial derivatives, integral transforms, and variables, stacked like scaffolding, it was meant as a provocation. The kind of question no sophomore should touch. "Let's try something ambitious today," she said. "Mr. Johnson, care to give it a try?" Marco looked up slowly. His heart pounded, not with fear, with calculation. He recognized the equation immediately. He had solved harder problems alone in the back of his father's auto shop. Using chalk and engine grease, he stood. The room fell into silence as he walked to the board. Winters leaned against the podium, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. She expected fumbling, hesitation, an embarrassing moment to bring the room back to focus. Instead, Marco's hand moved with precision. He broke the equation apart like it was a puzzle he'd solved before, layer by layer, line by line, introducing advanced methods with graceful notation, Fourier transforms, Green's functions, boundary conditions. 15 minutes passed. No stuttering, no second guessing. When he finally stepped back, the board was full, balanced, complete. Winters stared. "That's correct," she said, her voice quieter now. A ripple passed through the class. Whispers, glances. Someone muttered, "What the hell just happened?" Marco sat back down. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just opened his notebook like nothing had changed. But everything had. By lunchtime, word had spread. The quiet scholarship kid from the East Side had solved a problem Winters used for graduate seminars. A student known more for silence than brilliance had just rewritten his identity with a single piece of chalk. Marco hated it. He had worked so hard not to be noticed, to survive, not shine. At his old school, the moment he'd stood out, he'd been accused of cheating. He'd been punished for making his classmates feel small. He'd learned that being exceptional came with consequences. His parents never told him to hide his gift, but they told him not to make trouble. Work hard. Stay humble. Don't draw heat. His mom cleaned offices before sunrise. His dad fixed cars until his back gave out. Marco knew he couldn't afford to fail. But now, failing wasn't the problem. Visibility was. Professor Winters wasn't used to being wrong. The next day, she called Marco into her office. She stood behind her desk, tense but curious. Dean Howard sat beside her, flipping through Marco's academic file with a frown. "You've tested into advanced math before," Winters said, pointing at the records. "Why didn't you tell us?" Marco shrugged. "No one asked." Dean Howard glanced at Winters. "You're operating at a postgraduate level. Son, we're not prepared for that." Winters cleared her throat. "We'd like to offer you an accelerated curriculum, one-on-one mentorship, maybe independent study." Marco hesitated. "Why now?" The dean blinked. Winters looked away. "Because I misjudged you," she said finally. "And I'm not proud of it." Marco didn't respond. He wasn't interested in apologies. He wanted truth. As the weeks passed, his world shifted. Advanced classes, research privileges, conversations with professors who now saw him as more than a line on a roster. But for every door that opened, another challenge emerged. Some students admired him, others resented him. They called him names behind his back: the calculator, charity kid, discount genius. Tanya, a third year on scholarship herself, warned him, when you're exceptional and you don't look like them, they don't know what to do with you. Marco smiled bitterly. I know. Still, he persisted. And then came the invitation, the National Collegiate Mathematics Invitational, the top-tier competition. Televised, sponsored, ruthless. Marco didn't want to go. He didn't want the spotlight. But Tanya reminded him, if you don't take your place, someone else will take credit for it. He said yes. The competition was brutal. The final problem was unsolvable to most. A multi-layered, abstract equation that blended physics, topology, and real analysis. Marco stared at it for 20 minutes. Then he picked up his pen. He wasn't solving the problem just for himself. He was solving it for every kid who'd ever been told to sit down. For his father, who'd given up health insurance to pay for textbooks. For his mother, who never once let him see her cry over late rent. He finished in 42 minutes. The judges triple-checked his work. When they announced his name as the winner, the room erupted. Professor Winters, watching from the audience, wiped her eyes. Dean Howard stood and clapped. In the back row, Marco's father stood up too, his hands rough, his jacket worn, his pride impossible to miss. Later that week, at a school-wide assembly, Professor Winters took the microphone. There was a time, she said slowly, when I believed intelligence looked a certain way, that it came with polish, with connections, with status. But Marco Johnson reminded me that brilliance can walk into a room quietly, sit in the back row, and wait for someone to recognize it. She looked at Marco, and I almost didn't. The room stood, applauded. Marco nodded. But he wasn't overwhelmed. He wasn't even surprised. He had known who he was all along. And now, finally, so did they.